So I understand you've been here now, what, for 2 days? Is that right? Came in yesterday afternoon. Okay. And you had a great first day? And a good dinner and an evening? And some fun, I hope. Rumor has it there was supposed to be a comedian here, correct? Sorry to disappoint you, but it's not me. Although you may find some of my slides a little comical. All right, so what did you hear yesterday? You heard about digital transformation from Martin. I think Martin set the scene on just what's happening with digital transformation globally, why it's so important, why actually every single company, and there are no exceptions, is on some form of digital journey. It's not optional, you all know that. It's the time and the place that we live in. Companies are emerging overnight that didn't exist several years ago. They are now taking over the Fortune top 500. Companies that we've known ever since we were born are disappearing seemingly overnight. This stuff is real. It's really happening, and guess what? It's just accelerating and will continue to accelerate. So when we think about the context of digital transformation, and we think about everybody being on a journey, it's important to understand that there are no best practices. There is no rule book to follow. Everybody is just doing it, to quote the Nike phrase. And it is those that do it better and faster and quicker who are prospering, and those who are just a little slow are getting a little left behind. So when we think about digital transformation, I'm sure Martin talked about the importance of software now becoming the new principal organizing foundation, if you will, of everybody's business. We're all software companies, aren't we? And if that's true, then we need to think about what the foundation of a software-based company really needs to look like. And during my presentation today, I'm going to share with you the concept of what we call the modern software factory. And by the way, the modern software factory is not something we sell. It's something that every organization needs to have. Now, you might say to me, well, Stephen, we think we have one already, and I can understand why you might think that. This presentation should ideally be appealing to all of you, regardless of where you are on your journey. I think there's something in it for everyone. The point about the modern software factory is it's designed to bring you to a place where you are better equipped to not just compete with digital transformation or compete in the digital era, but to positively champion it, own it, and make it your competitive advantage in your business. But let's start by just setting the scene, because it's important that we can all identify where we are in the journey today. And let me tell you, I meet many, many, many customers on my journey, and I can tell you the vast majority of them, probably close to 85-90%, are probably somewhere off here today. Those one-off digital programs or projects, maybe it's a particular domain that you've just decided to spin up and try to experiment and do something different in. Maybe it's just a particular part of your operation, like sales, or to reach a specific market segment, perhaps. But the reality is that many people today are just doing digital projects. It's a great place to start. You have to start somewhere, but please understand that the vast majority are still there today. Then you get those who have moved a little further forward to think more about what the next steps really mean. How can I think about conceiving a new product or service that's targeted for a particular group, a particular domain, maybe a particular market segment, like, for example, the millennials, or maybe to come up with a digital-only product, for example, as a net new service offering. And that sort of level 2 in the evolution is something that I see many now stepping up and aspiring to take on. And again, it's a little bit of a different thought process, and it requires you to think much, much more deeply about what you're doing rather than necessarily just going out and digitizing what you already have. The next phase of the evolution is really where I see precious few today, if I'm perfectly honest, where people are now beginning to start thinking about the reality of the customer journey that your customers take with you, what that looks like, how they choose to interact, how they engage, how they inquire, how they evaluate, how they ultimately transact, buy, and then consume services from you. And it is by looking at those quite ruthlessly and then determining from that point how you then put a strategy together to underpin what better needs to look like, really is what phase 3 is all about. And that's where you see much more end-to-end transformational programs take place. And many are beginning to start, but just let's be clear, most people are just beginning to get to that level. And then you get those which really are right up there, and there's precious few today who are right up there at the full end of the scale, holistic, full-blown business digitization. They are not digitizing their existing business. They are fundamentally digitizing their entire business strategy. And when you look at those companies and you try to set them apart or look at things that make them different, I can tell you that they believe in and are wedded to the power and the sheer energy of the digital ecosystem. Building partnerships, partnering as often and as frequently as possible because it's for the greater good of the speed and the relevance of the business. Developing new business models, not being afraid to destroy and tear down those which have been successful for the past 15 years but won't necessarily get you to where you need to be moving forward. Prizing innovation, putting innovation at the apex of the pyramid of strategic priorities and moving it from being event-based to being a continuum. Being obsessed with customers, putting them at the center of your business, not at the periphery. And viewing data as the new strategic asset to make empirical decisions about the things which really make sense, that support what a customer really wants, and makes for a better business goal and objective. And finally, and by no least important, automate everything wherever possible, because everything else is pointless unless you do. You'll just simply move the value curve one step in the right direction, only to slow it down because you just can't move fast enough with the rest of your business. When we look at the digital leaders out there that are different, we like to think about Amazon, we like to think about Google, Netflix, Uber, Facebook. They're all the poster childs out there, but there's many, many great examples here locally in India, across the Asia-Pacific and Japan region, and I meet many of them today, who are indeed disrupting their traditional business and very successfully so. But let me call out some things that really make them different that you may not be aware of if you're doing a Google search on these companies. So let's look at Google, for example. Famous for lots of things, doing lots of really interesting, cool stuff. But when I look at some of the nitty-gritty stuff that really makes the difference, do you know that they refactor their core applications by up to 50% every single month? That means they're looking at their pre-existing systems and figuring out how to tear them down and rebuild them in a new agile architecture, just simply because they want to be more relevant to the customers they're serving. Amazon needs no introduction, makes a release every 11.6 seconds and increasing by the day. And everybody says to me, why on earth would anybody want to release software that rapidly, that continuously? And it's simply because they want to drop that level of value into their delivery chain to their customers with such a degree of frequency and expediency that it makes the difference in their business, it makes them competitive, it makes them super disruptive in their business. Netflix, the world's favorite place for going and streaming your favorite videos. Do you know that they have up to 5 billion API calls a day, and that's just internal. They have another 3 billion API calls just for external connectivity. It's fair to say that APIs aren't just an experiment for them. It's not just an interesting little side project for their business. It is the foundation of their entire business. They are as successful as they are because they've moved to an API architecture to run their business. And here's the key thing. Everybody says to me, well, that's interesting, Google, Netflix, Uber. Yeah, but we're not those companies. We're a bank. We're an airline company. We're a transportation company. But that's not the point. The point is that the people that you are serving, your customer base, They are basing their definition, their refined definition of a great experience based on interacting with those companies. The first airline company, the first bank, the first transportation company to come along and provide a similar service in what are today completely liquid markets, let's face it, there are no lock-ins. They're gone. You've lost them. They've gone to the next business. And it's that simple, and it's that brutal. So, delight your customers, meet their ever-changing expectations that are continuously getting reframed by other companies, or be prepared to lose them. It's that simple. So when we think about customer experience, you won't hear disruptors use language like customer experience. For them, that's a given. They use the word customer obsession. What that means for them is they are not wedded to their processes. They're not wedded to what their funding structures look like. They're not wedded to their projects. They're not wedded to how their resources are organized in different silos. They don't care about that. They place the customer at the center of their business, and they build everything else around that. We, on the other hand, let's face it, in the majority of the normal world, and CA can attest for this because we were there once ourselves, we kind of get it a little bit back to face, don't we? We kind of think about the project, think about the funding, think about the resourcing. Yeah, there's a strategy, there's a plan, but we put everything else in the way, and then the customer sort of gets what he wants finally at the end of quite a complicated process. And it's fair to say that he's not at the center of our business. We are, if you will, doing what we have, albeit possibly better or better than we were previously, but we're not necessarily delivering what he wants. The disruptors, on the other hand, the customer's at the center, and everything is organized around the customer. Let me try and make this real for you, and perhaps you can identify with this. So here's the reality. For most of us in this room today, 95% of us, I would say, and I would challenge you to say, that the majority of your customers are disconnected from your business. That may be unpopular, you may be unhappy with the statement, but I'm about to explain why I believe it's the case. I'm sure that you don't lack ideas, initiatives, great things that you need to go and take to your market, to your customers, because I'm sure you understand your business very well. We are not short of good ideas, let's be clear about that. And we're pretty good at talking to the customer and getting some pretty immediate feedback as to how he feels about those good ideas, right? I can build you a green box. Yes, I'd really love to have a green box from you. And then we go and put all our processes in the way, don't we? We have to think about how we fund it, how we plan it, build it, test it, deploy it, manage it, measure it. And we deploy tools to do this today. We don't have technology, we buy tools. And when do we buy the tools? We buy the tools at the end of a process, don't we? When we've decided what we want to build, and then we go and put an RFP together, and then we go and talk to companies like CA, don't we? And we say, we think we need a tool to help us better manage or optimize this. Everybody does it, they stick tools at the back end of the process. What happens, though, is that along that way, the tools kind of disappoint. We don't ever kind of quite figure out how to go and build the green box for the customer. We're under pressure to deliver on time, so we end up delivering a gray box. It's kind of gray, greenish, on the way to being green. Customer doesn't like it, gets a little disappointed. Previously may have had not much choice, but hey, there's a new kid on the block, he's in town. And our competitor's moving a little faster than us. Why? Because he's supremely well organized. He's a completely agile business, not just agile in the development shops, he's an agile business. And he is iterating with the customer, finding out and validating through every step of the journey what the customer feels about the different stages of how that product gets delivered. And note that it's not perfect from day one, because guess what? We were originally set up to deliver a gray box. But hey, we're pretty cool. We were able to iterate quickly. We understood what the customer wanted. We were able to deliver what he wanted. And guess what? It's a liquid market. Nobody's locked in. He exercises his right to choose the product he wants, and he's gone. It's really that simple. And then we say, oh, we just lost a really big customer. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We need to get him back. We need to double down, get him back, get him back, get him back. Okay, what are we going to do? Right, well, we're going to have more ideation. We're going to have more innovation going on. Let's have a hackathon. Okay, good. That sounds like a good idea. So we get the dev teams together, and we get the partners that we're working with. Yeah, because there's some cool tech companies out there, right? Yeah, maybe they got some good products. Maybe they can help us come back and compete against that competitor that took away and sold them the green box. Well, okay, we'll have a hackathon. We'll throw together an event. We've organized it for a couple of weeks in the future, but that's by and by. Okay, we have the event, and we figure out, because we've got some great, smart people together, that we can actually build a blue box. And maybe the blue box is better than the green box. So let's now go and talk to the customer about whether he'd be interested in the blue box. And guess what? We get a reaction that says, yes, you know what? I've got the green one, but the blue one sounds really cool. In fact, if you could build that, I'd be interested in using that maybe as part of what I do moving forward. Well, then we've got a challenge, right? Because we've already built the gray box, and we went and built that on monolithic application architecture. Sound familiar? With archaic processes that say it's actually really difficult to change, can't change it too easily. Therefore, I'm going to kind of park that to one side, kind of keep that running, and we'll figure out what to do with that later, despite the fact that this costs an absolute fortune to keep running and operating. And then we'll go and try and build that blue box that the customer wanted. Well, we haven't changed our processes at this point. We're still using tooling. We're still using legacy practices, still struggling to deliver value to the customer. And guess what? Our competitor, who already has a relationship now with our customer, he's taken his agile business processes. He's doing continuous ideation because he's refining the value of what he's delivering to the customer every minute, and he is nimbly able to now pivot and change and build blue boxes. And he's got there a little ahead of us. We were still able to build what sort of looked like a blue box, not quite right, because again, our processes and our archaic technology and architectures got in the way, and unfortunately, we didn't win the customer back. Sound familiar? I tell you, this happens all the time. The money we spend here around innovation initiatives based around events is killing business. We need to change. We need to rethink how we deliver continuous innovation. Not to mention, we've probably run over budget. We were time to market. We obviously weren't as fast as the person we were competing with. And we've still got some quality issues because we have silo-based tools rather than technologies supporting what we have. Well, then it gets better, right? Because we're all under pressure, and I hear boards say this, saying we are, the number one strategy in this company is to go omni-channel. That means we want to deliver a ubiquitous, seamless experience for multiple different products and services that we provide to our customers, because we want to upsell and cross-sell more services to that customer. It makes perfect sense. I do understand, and it's absolutely should be the number one strategy for most organizations, particularly if you're a big player, and obviously you are dependent on volume and the ability to cross-sell and upsell multiple products and services to the same customer. So here we are, offering now multiple boxes to our customers, and we get a sense from this more mature customer that he actually does want to take multiple services. He's looking for he's looking to sort of simplify his relationships, doesn't want to deal with too many different companies. So we get a good understanding that he may be interested in a one-stop shop around multiple products and solutions. Well, we go out there and we start thinking, we need to get smarter about this because we lost the first time and we lost the second time, so now we're not going to make that mistake again. What we're going to do is we're going to go out there and we're going to really get super smart with these technology companies, these third parties, these SIs, these development shops that are going to help us just move a little faster. And so we go and get the different lines of business connected to these entities, and we start trying to build these multiple different product offerings to our customer. But again, we're struggling to do it for a number of different reasons. Not only do we have problems in-house, again, with the tooling, the technology, and the architecture, but we haven't figured out how to connect to the third parties in a way which is continuously delivering value. And again, our competitors have sadly figured it out again, and they're very, very quick to now cross-sell and upsell multiple different product streams because they build their capability on a continuous integrated platform. They've moved away from different lines of business that run independently from one another. Smart thing to do. But here's the thing that really hurts. Not only at this point is the customer making decisions, and maybe he can't get everything from the competitor, maybe he's still coming back to take one or two legacy heritage services from you. We all feel good about that, don't we? But here's the thing. These people out here also run businesses. They need to survive. They are measured differently. They are typically not necessarily measured on the same things that the larger, more established companies are. They're measured on footprint. They're measured on paying customers, taking services. And so what I see playing out big time is where these nimbler competitors who are clearly insurgent players in major market opportunities, where they are able to move fast and connect quickly to provide valuable, relevant services. I'm beginning to see an increasing trend of the ecosystem of value. Those partners that help you deliver incrementally that value are shifting their allegiances and their alliances to work with these companies. So now, not only is your omni-channel strategy at threat because you can't fundamentally deliver what they want and with the quality and to the right time frame, but you're putting at peril your ability to monetize and leverage a whole new ecosystem of value, which helps you provide the right products and bring them to market faster, but provides you an opportunity to jointly monetize and cross-sell and upsell services with them. They're choosing to go and work elsewhere. So again, we need to think about not just necessarily thinking that these companies all want to come and work with us because we're a big established company. They have choice too. And it's important that we understand that. So here's the multi-layered disconnect. Challenge number one is, very, very quickly, we just buy tools. I don't know why we continue to buy tools because, frankly, it's a waste of money. We need to think about technology. The stuff you buy really shouldn't be just about informing and reporting. It should be more about a contiguous, integrated technology platform that provides rich and valuable data insights that helps you really understand how your customers feel about the experience they're deriving from your services, from your company, to really help you deliver them in a much more experience-rich way. So, tools that we use and deploy today, frankly speaking, ladies and gentlemen, are deployed way too late in the innovation cycle. They're at the end. They need to be much, much earlier in the process. Why? Because if you're using insights early and you're getting feedback early, you can use those insights to iterate with customers. If you're iterating with customers, then you get subjective feedback, and then you get empirical data insights from the technology that demonstrates and shows or reveals things to your customers that they're not aware of, and you can use that iteration to drive ideation, which helps you refine the products and services that you're building. Secondly, we need to move out of operating in silos because it's killing us. We need to unify these together into common platforms. Why? Because it will give you the ability to see where you can cross-leverage other pre-existing applications and services already in place. And thirdly, we lack holistic views. The intelligence that enables us to be a lot more predictive and proactive in our approach. Tools have really been used as sort of like a post-processing, reactive information-based exercise by and large in the past. We kind of need to get that into the much more predictive, proactive cadence. The second thing we need to look at is our processes. And across the cycle of delivering an idea to an outcome today, most organizations today, frankly, look like this. And I mean a lot that say, whoa, we're agile, Stephen, we're really agile. I say, really? So what, you're agile across the length and breadth of your business? No, we do it in development. I understand that. By the way, so does most of the rest of the world. But the rest of your processes, let's face it, for the majority of organizations today, probably from a funding and a planning perspective and a resourcing perspective, are probably waterfall-centric. Am I fair? And probably when you get into the back end of the process, after you've built some software or some applications, you get into sort of testing and deployment, it starts to look a little bit more waterfall-like, right? Very sort of sequential in its process. And certainly into managing and measuring, it's all waterfall-centric. The challenge with this is, when you operate in this way, despite the fact that you get some benefit from being agile in development, is you are really slowing your business down to the slowest common denominator, which is your legacy practices. That means I could go and spin up that interesting, new, exciting ability to deliver that green box. Remember the story? But maybe I couldn't get it to the customer fast enough. Maybe I was outmaneuvered by my competitor, not because I couldn't build it as quickly, but maybe I needed to go back to the company to get some extra resourcing or some extra funding. But because that works in a waterfall process that's linked to a project, I can't unlock it without going through quite a process, quite some levels of kind of decision-making and levels of authority. And generally speaking, it doesn't happen fast enough. And then, even if there's great intent from the management to say, well, I might be interested in funding that, and yeah, we could move some resources around, we typically don't have the data to support the decisions we want to make. So we don't do it. We procrastinate, and we slow anything we do with Agile down to the speed that our processes can work at. Similarly, when we come into the deployment phase, much the same story. So there's no ability to move at Agile speed. And really, for everything we do within Agile from a development standpoint, we're really wasting our time and money unless we can take Agile across a much, much broader spectrum of the business. And here's the key thing. If you're not a truly Agile business, how can you truly iterate with a customer and make ideation a continuum in your relationship with that customer so that fundamentally you're delivering what he wants, not what you have? And then, if we can get by all of that, then we have the architecture. God love it, but we've been blessed with N-tier monolithic architectures. Most of the world's core banking systems, core travel systems, core logistics systems, all today work off core N-tier monolithic applications. Nothing wrong with that. That's how they used to be built. It worked well, they're reliable, stable, well understood. Lots of practices out there to support it. The problem is they're very fragile. They're very difficult to change, very hard to scale. And they step in the way of progress when you want to be able to continuously change the applications and the content you're delivering your customer. So API tunnels started to become an effective way of bypassing these constraints to start nailing up a mobile user connection, as an example, to a data source and providing a rich, secure experience tunnel through those heritage systems and architectures. I like to call it constraint bypass. And it's provided some relief, shall we say, in being able to get certain things done a little faster. And whilst API management is a sensible place to start, because in reality you're not going to be able to tear down your pre-existing systems overnight. You're going to have to do it in a series of phases. To take an API strategy makes a lot of sense to get moving quickly, start getting things done, as I talked to earlier, and get to a place where you can actually start building your digital programs. But you will reach a point where you can't put it off any longer. You're going to need to think about a newer architecture, and we'll come and talk about that in just a second. Because unless you do, it's going to be difficult to iterate, change, and scale. And again, you're competing with people that can do this, so it is something that you're not going to be able to put off forever. And then, if we could sort all of that out, if we could find a way to start delivering things quickly from an idea to an outcome in terms of delivering a product into a customer's hand, and we could start to think about building those seamless relationships with the back end, with those development, with those third parties, those new tech companies. Let's just assume we could get all that sorted out. We then have another problem in that security or risk changes in the digital world. Because now you're going to have a lot more privileged users, people who have the right to come in and touch systems, needing access to your systems because they're working on things, they're developing new applications. If you've now moved to making innovation a continuum and you've built a basis to now permanently work with third parties, fintech companies, for example, if you're a bank, these people are going to need to touch your applications because you're going to want to mash them up to build new collaborative, co-created services. That's a really, really cool thing to do. But you're going to go through a proliferation of people wanting to have access to these systems. Well, in the past, maybe it was a problem of 30, 40 people you had to manage. I met a bank the other day that was telling me they're going to have 3,000 people touching their systems, and it's a good thing, and they had no idea how they're going to take it on. So Smart, dynamic, privileged access management is going to be a big thing as we start to think about building more integrated ecosystems of value. Secondly, let's think about the code. We all love to go out there now and embrace open source. Open source is now cool because we can get hold of open source, we can build stuff quicker, throw it together, it works. Problem in the community, and you can just throw it out there and 5,000 people will work on fixing the bug and you can have the fix overnight, and it's all really quick, isn't it? We love to use open source. And more companies, by the way, are using open source, and it's a good thing to do. But we're mashing this stuff up with stuff that we're also building internally. We're mashing it together with things that we're building with our development partners and our fintech friends. How do we know the code's safe? Yeah, we've had the bug fixed, but do we know it's got backdoors in the code? Do we know it's really safe? Hey, I'm a bank. I'm about to provide a service to a customer, and if there are backdoors in the code which provide access to privileged information, I could have severe penalties as a bank. I may even be shut down. I may have my license revoked. So we need to make sure this stuff is safe. And so having the ability to scan the code and validate its safety is a really important thing. And last and by no means least, if we can have all that sorted out, we still got then the problem of people wanting access to our applications and systems. We wanted to go omni-channel, didn't we? That's a good thing to do. But if it's an indifferent experience moving between different touch points, if I have to keep signing on repetitively, if I have an indifferent experience on the application from a look and feel perspective because of an identity access issue, I'm going to view that as a user experience challenge. I'm going to get to a point where I might like the product, the green boxes, the blue boxes, and the gray boxes, but I still may go to the competitor because at the end of the day, I don't have similar challenges in terms of accessing and doing business with him. Digital leaders, let me explain to you how they do it very, very quickly. First of all, they don't buy tools, they build technology platforms. They don't care about reporting, they don't care about the things that we typically precious and prize. They think about things like agility, they think about automation, they think about insights in a big way, and they think about reestablishing and redefining trust. But more importantly, they build these in integrated platforms. Integrated workflows, new capabilities that provide a rich platform that forms the entire basis of how you can now intelligently interact with your customers, make those user journeys real, translate what you understand from an analytics and an embedded intelligent perspective to actionable, to valuable actionable initiatives you can put in place to fuel that iteration process to continually build what your customers really want. Deployed as early as possible, fueling iteration, unifying those silos, and providing something on a much more proactive, predictive way. And embedding the intelligence within the technology platform itself. I met a lot of people that go out and make big investments in big data. Nothing wrong in that. I've met a lot that have gone and spent a fortune on data scientists. Nothing wrong in that. Slicing and dicing the data 27,000 different ways into the middle of next Tuesday, but not necessarily coming up with actionable insights that drive an ability to respond quickly to a customer that just simply wants to pivot and change. And so take on those big data initiatives, use it to help some of the macro strategy planning around how you're thinking about your business moving forward. But in what I call the pivot and shift mode of delivering value to customers, I think it falls way short today. And I think you're going to need to look at the technology platforms giving you the empirical insights with the embedded intelligence to drive that. When we start to look at our processes, you've got to throw those water scrumful environments away. I know they've served you well over the years gone by, but they're not going to get you to where you need to get to. You're going to need to move to a fully agile business. That's where you take the concepts of what I've just described, running in a sequential process, now running as a fully agile process across the length and breadth of your business. And it simply means that if you can do that, as you start to think about funding, planning, building, testing, deploying, measuring, you can now do that in an iterative cadence where you're validating that with the technology platform that you now have, with the insights to support it, to have that continuous ability to innovate. As you start with your gray box, because We didn't have the green box to start with, remember? But very, very quickly understand that what the customer really needs is green, and through iterating, I can get more feedback from him so that at the end of the day, I really deliver what he wants, when he wants, in the quickest possible time, in a time frame which suits his requirements. It's really as simple as that, but not many companies are doing it today. The other difference is they've moved to modern architectures. Now, I know you can't turn off your heritage systems overnight. I get that, I understand that. But you need to start the process and accelerate it as rapidly as possible. An advanced API management strategy will get you from tunneling from your first mobile users to get access to data and providing that in a secure, experience-rich way. It's a great place to start. But moving forward, the new cloud-native architecture that really the digital disruptors will use, it's all an API architecture. Microservices, as we talk about, the ability to build smaller, composable, changeable services, fundamentally are wedded to an API architecture. So APIs don't just become an interesting little sideshow for your business. They are the foundation of everything you build moving forward. And it's important to have a plan to start deploying them now and then evolve that through a maturity curve as you move to a full-blown microservices model, leveraging cloud technology, either privately or publicly, and obviously the new unit of deployment choice, containerization, which obviously helps you speed the deployment of how you bring these microservices into supporting your business. Microservices, in short, give you the opposite to what you have with your current monolithic end-tier systems. They give you something which is, they use the term anti-fragile, meaning it doesn't matter what you do to it, you can't fundamentally break it because everything is independently deployed. There are no dependencies, so it doesn't matter if you've got one application touching 67 pieces of an individual business logic. It has no relationship to the other application and the different parts of the business logic that may have access to and use. Unlike on a monolithic system where some of these resources are shared. So then when you have to change it, you have to check the dependencies it has with other applications that may be using the same application. Totally different in a microservices environment. That's why this is becoming the new way of deploying our applications and services. APIs everywhere, that's the new DX fabric. Highly composable, highly changeable, highly scalable architecture. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, what the people that are really disrupting the planet today, the ones who are leading by a standing mile, the ones that we look up to and read about and get all excited about, the ones that are, frankly, tearing apart the business and are the new leaders in our business when you look at the top Fortune 500 and beyond, this is fundamentally what they look like. And so the fastest we could possibly move to these realities, the better it's going to be for every single business. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to just present the concept of being customer-centered, the notion of delivering what customers want, putting the customer at the center of your business. No, I mean really putting him at the center of your business. Not just saying it, because we all say it, but let's build a capability that truly enables it. Let's unify them on a technology platform that gives us the intelligent, seamless ability to interact with them intelligently, iteratively, to understand what they want, pivot, change, and turn that into action. Let's make sure we can move quickly to modern architectures, albeit that we may do it in a phased approach. Let's understand how we can move from our first deployment of APIs into more of an API maturity model, into then a full-blown microservices model as you slowly pension off your monolithic end-tier application services. Let's give you the ability to change that at the speed that you can to meet the needs of your business today, but get it to a point where it's truly responsive to the changes that your customers require. Let's make innovation a continuum. Hackathons are great, but they're event-based. With all due respect, I don't think your customers or your competitors, I should say, are competing with you on an event basis. I think they're up 24/7, 7 days a week, thinking about how they take their business away from you. So when you think about innovation, likewise, you should think about it differently too. Let's get away from the hackathons. Let's turn innovation into a continuum. Not just in terms of your own internal resources, but that ecosystem of people that you can work with, and who want to work with you because it's going to make the difference in your business. And finally, think about then as you expand the ecosystem, and you need to start thinking about what trust looks like in the new modern world, as I just shared with you, about then how you rethink through that. It's not about legacy security products that maybe you've been buying for the last 10 or 15 years. You really need to rethink that in terms of what that means for your business in the new digital era. And then we've moved away from those sequential processes to now start thinking about how we plan, how we bring in true business agility, how we automate, drive insights, and think about security on a continuum, pivoting and shifting as each iteration with our customer changes the dynamic. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is digital leadership, which I would submit and argue is all about having true business agility. What digital leaders have today is true business agility. Not agility in their dev shops, but across the length and breadth of their business, covering all these elements that I've just shared with you. I don't have time to go through these slides because we've spent quite a bit on this morning, and I could tell from some of the faces that there have been some points there to dwell upon. But it's important to understand that it's not just me saying this. If you look at data out there, which you can publicly read, and we don't have time to go all through this today, but want to know how important trust is moving forward? 43% of all companies interviewed in a recent survey, I think this involved 2,000 people in a recent survey last year, they said that 43% felt that their brand reputation, their entire image, was fundamentally at risk because of data security. 76% of breaches were because of stolen credentials. Not bad guys coming in from the outside and doing bad stuff, but privileged access users who have access to systems legitimately, who weren't just caught properly, they weren't seen because everything's too transient and too transactional, getting in and doing bad stuff. Most theft of private and confidential information comes from corporate insiders, not outsiders. Only 36% of large organizations today use microservices in production. That's a problem. That means they don't have an agile architecture. That means they're not built to change. 63% of all projects are not aligned to the business strategy. That's a problem. That means everything you do in Agile, in your dev shops, is a waste of time because you have no ability to align it to how your business runs. 70% of application delivery delays are due to new and changing requirements. Guess what? Newsflash. It's going to increase. Why? Because customers want to pivot and shift, pivot and shift, pivot and shift, pivot and shift. Changing requirements are going to be a way that we just do business. So unless we have an ability to address this and take this percentage down quite a bit, our organizations are going to struggle. 96% of time is spent securing and creating APIs, which lead to poor time to value. You already heard me say APIs are going to be the foundational architecture of our business. And right now, 96% of the time is spent building them, creating them, testing them, deploying them. It's obviously not going to work. We're going to need to find a way to automate that and make that a fundamental part of our business. You can read the rest of the slides. I like this one. The number one innovation for driving digital revenue growth is a well-defined omni-channel strategy. We looked at that, didn't we? We looked at the perils of building an omni-channel relationship with our customers. Process got in the way. Technology got in the way, didn't it? Innovation as an event got in the way. Inability to drive an ecosystem of value. Our ecosystem partners went elsewhere, didn't they? Lose all that, we're going to have no ability to have a credible, relevant omni-channel, and it's going to impair our ability to grow our digital revenue growth. 89% is the rate of customer retention for companies with an omni-channel customer engagement strategy. So what that says is, for those who deliver it successfully and solve these problems, they retain up to 89% of their customers. Well, in a fluid market, where customers have the right to come and go as they please, I would say that's a pretty important part of our strategy to get right. So the modern software factory is about unifying architecture, trust, ecosystem technology, and innovation, and making it the new organizational principle of your company so you really can be the software company you really want to be. So that you can drive empirical insights, informed iteration, rapid change, composable, anti-fragile, scalable environments, to build those super extensive, integrated, collaborative environments because they are the future of your business, and to continuously, rapidly industrialize the things that you build. I didn't talk about it earlier, but one of the problems with hackathons as well is we all get together, we spend 3 or 4 days having a love fest, we come up with 20 ideas, 6 of them are good, we go talk to a customer says, I might be interested in that, but then we have no ability to rapidly industrialize them. How do you take those great ideas that you spent a fortune developing and then industrialize them really quickly to get them into the hands of the people that really matter, your customers? So that's an important thing. And finally, safety, compliance, securely enabled in an era of dynamic trust. We talked about that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the modern software factory, agility delivered, which I believe delivers value to the customer. It will solve your time to market issues and get you to a point where you can truly compete with the people that can get to market for most of the time faster than you can, and deliver the best experience. And that best experience isn't just a woolly phrase. It's everything, because it's those compelling experiences that are better than your competitors, which will be the secret sauce as to why they come with you in the first place, or whether they choose to take their business elsewhere. It's that simple. And I think that by implementing this approach, by taking the advice around some of the things I've shared with you, I think that this is a strategy for helping you to deliver your business outcomes with digital technologies better than your competitors. So Martin probably shared this slide with you earlier, so I won't go into details, but that in essence is the heart of the modern software factory concept that you heard Martin talk about today, that I've embellished with you a little further in terms of the importance and the relevance and why it's needed. CA has the capability to deliver this not just through the traditional tools that you buy from us, and we love you to continue to buy the tools, but we've spent considerable time and energy and money changing our company over the last 5 years, really, to get to a point where we can truly deliver this. And that's what we do. Now, let's be clear. I want to make the point, and it's a very important point, that whilst we can deliver very large number of components of this to support what you may choose to buy, deploy as part of what you consider to be your modern software factory, you can, and we welcome that. But we're realistic insofar as we recognize that you're already on your journey. You already have your modern software factory. You may not call it that, you may call it something else, but you have some investments that you've made to go and build what you think is the future of your business in the digital world. We have designed our approach so that it leverages and integrates with and harnesses some of the stuff you already have. So this is not a sort of a buy ours or stay with where you've got type of scenario. No, it's too important for that. I spend all my time, just so you're clear, helping the company conceive and build what this has to be. I can tell you there is such a degree of horsepower and brain power going in behind this to make it what it is, because it's the future of what the business needs to be. So, I'm not going to go into too much more about the products and the capabilities, because you're going to have many presenters come up during the course of the rest of the day to share with you some of the capabilities in the individual lines of our business, which talk into what we're delivering from a modern software factory perspective. But suffice to say that when you think about the cadences of capability around all of those important aspects of the business. That's what the modern software factory delivers. Create an agile business, a truly agile business. Make sure you're building your apps better, faster, and with greater quality. And more importantly, the ones that your customers really want, not what you have. Making security your competitive advantage, because one of the biggest issues getting in the way of success in the digital era is the perception of weakened or poor trust. An organization that perhaps you want to go and trust all of your business assets with, but they had an indifferent experience last time you tried to get connected to their business. They were reported in the press as having a potential data breach because of something they hadn't looked at. Or someone had hacked into a part of their code because they'd left backdoors in the code. Nobody wants to hear this. These things kill companies. They put them out of business. And so make security your competitive advantage, because these things are going to be very, very important. You've all read about the new data laws coming into place in Europe. You might say, well, Europe's a long way away from where I am, but you know what? If you read the laws carefully, what those laws say that if you touch any European business or any user or consumer of that European business, and you're guilty, even though you may be in India, of a breach of data privacy or trust, you are liable to the laws that hold that European company. We live in a digital world, we live in a borderless world, and so some of these things will become important on a global basis. So having an entity of trust, having an entity of privacy, having an entity of really feeling comfortable that your assets are safe and secure with an organization and won't be shared or hacked or broken into, become a critical component of being successful in the modern era. And finally, maximizing application performance, because you re-architect your infrastructure to deliver it in a modern environment, to deliver it in a changeable way that enables you to pivot, shift, and change and adapt to your customers' ever-changing needs. So that's all I wanted to cover during my session, and I want to thank you for the time.